Org. As a result of the overprescription of pharmaceuticals, Mr. Simpson was diagnosed with a rare seizure disorder in 2008. He saw firsthand the need for a natural, non-toxic, long-term solution. Over the course of the next 9+ years, King Harvest went on to help thousands of patients recover from an array of life-threatening illness. Lee's hands-on experience with the application of CBD and THC compounds has proved second to none in the education of patients and his industry peers. Wow. So please welcome Lee.
Hi everybody, my name is Lee, and about a decade ago I got very sick, and like many people do, and healing plant medicine, specifically cannabis oil medicines, were able to stop immediately what was going on with me, which was life-threatening, certainly. I had been in and out of emergency rooms I'd had a seizure disorder for quite a while, and the pharmaceuticals were making it worse, and stopping the seizures, all in all, it had lowered my seizure threshold so low that, even a stressful afternoon, I would be, flopping around on the floor. So I was banging my head and falling downstairs and being taken to, Chalk Hospital or Hoag Hospital, when they would send me home with a little green piece of paper that says, "Don't bother to come back because you've been here too many times," right? So I went home, and obviously my life had fallen apart. This is just before, what led to our organization now. And someone was kind enough to help me with a very crude form of the medicines that, one of the medicines that we make now, which was a strain-specific medicine that was rich both in THC and CBD, right? And from the point of first ingestion, my seizures were stopped. Within about 2.5 hours, they had slowly settled down, and within 72 hours, the main underlying mechanism had gone away. That led us to people asking, you were going to die, what the heck's going on, right? And so one thing led to another, and started helping people on an organic, case-by-case basis, which over the ensuing years, to do it legally, we figured out in the state of California, we needed to found our organization now, which is kingharvest.org. And the spirit of that is a Red Cross-style underground railroad of healing plant medicine that we've been able to provide for the better part of about 10,000 patients overall in the last few years. Okay. So babies with brain tumors, everything from eczema to lymphoma, ALS, seizure disorders, both in human and in canine, also feline and in horses too, equine therapy too. So we see about 10 to 30 unique cases inbound each day, quite organically without having done any advertising. So what we do is we bring in patients, we educate them, we spend whatever time it takes, whatever they need, because the one common thread that our patients have, and what has also led all of us here to the room tonight, is that the basic premise of Western medicine is literally nothing. It's just a platform for the overprescription and the misuse of what is actually making us more sick as a culture and a society. And whereas nobody goes into medicine for the wrong reasons, politics, money, lobby, etc., by the time a doctor gets to where he can help you at the end of life, they are hamstrung so far that quite often they're chemo salespeople. And so what do we see in common with all of our patients is that they can be thrown away just like I was. They all got some form of that little green piece of paper, right? So what we do is we try to help people on a case-by-case basis, one at a time. And over the course of those years, we figured out that there is a lot to this cannabis science is an apothecarian art right now. Obviously, I'm very passionate about it. It's an apothecarian art that is so easily misrepresented and misused on an information level that what we see out on the internet and Google is, CBD cures everything. CBD is now vitamin C, right? Not the way we need to look at it. We're still thinking about it in a Western platform. We're thinking about it as separated, pulverized, dead chemicals. THC, CBD. The worst thing you could do is get pure CBD if you're really sick. Or if you, how many people every single day ask me, I have an anxiety disorder. I'm thinking about taking some CBD, right? No, right? It is a stimulant. It is a form of sativa, right? It is low in THC, so it won't exacerbate certain types of anxieties. But if you have anxiety, you need an indica-based THC. If you have breast cancer, it matters very much if it's estrogen positive or estrogen negative. Too much THC is shown to proliferate things, right? So if you have, and please correct me if I'm wrong, estrogen positive, you want high THC?
Correct.
Okay. Estrogen negative, you want almost totally pure CBD, right? But then again, we're just talking about chemicals. Cannabis medicines are artisanal, right? As our culture is moving back to all the craft community stuff. So medicines need to be strain specific. It matters very much, like not all CBD and THC is created the same. So what matters is the spiritual shamanistic aspect of the growers on the farm, the intention. But just as much the labs, right? And what's called the terpene profiles. So what we see, the workhorse of our organization is a strain called ACDC, just like the road. It has a naturally occurring ratio of 18:1. It is the single most powerful form of cannabis medicine that we will probably ever see. Hopefully we see a better one, right? But, while people are extracting oil out of hemp seeds, which, correct me if I'm wrong, are the male genitalia of the hemp part, right, of the genotype. What we need to do is have flower-specific, strain-specific, whole molecule medicine that retains all of those chemicals in its integrous form. Because nobody knows how it works. Right? So all this stuff that you see out there in dispensaries with CO2, and I could talk for hours about the crime of hemp. Hemp is great for the economy. It's great for making clothes. But if you have somebody that is sick, right? Please take out your pens and write this down. If you have somebody that is sick, that is concentrated plant estrogen. You do not want to give somebody toxic plant estrogen. Forgive me, I'm nervous. If they have a compromised immune system, right? You want to make medicines from the most robust part of the plant only, and that is going to come from the flowers, just the girl parts. And it's not going to come from the trim and all the other discardable parts around that. It's just going to come from the pristine thing that wants to be sold at top dollar in the dispensary.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
One is, what makes the ACDC the most powerful medicine? Is it because of the ratio, or is it anything else?
It seems to be, so we're talking about it, it seems to be the ratio between the THC and the CBD, and the point of that ratio is, as I heard earlier, to cause the entourage effect.
Even though there's other really high ratio CBD to THC, like Charlotte's Web and other ones?
If you go higher ratio, if you have a lower concentration than 18:1, right, then you start reducing the efficacy of the drug. There needs to be enough THC in there, right, to, as with, and see, it's a crude conversation at that, and we're talking about 2 chemicals still. There's 63 plus chemicals in there, and, we're going to be spending the next 10 or 20 years finding out why ACDC is so awesome. But for right now, it's because it's 18:1, right, has a 4% naturally occurring THC, And that, especially in women, right, that is just profound for stimulating the endocannabinoid system. And that's why I'm really here. It's not to talk about the medicines we make. If anybody's sick, we make medicines for them. Please come talk to us. That's the easy part. What we do is we make it's comprehensive patient aftercare and all that goes into it and the incorporation of all these things. I'm sorry, I cut you off. Keep going.
The other question is about, you said hemp versus flower. So the word hemp is being used in so many different ways. Can you just say what you mean by hemp versus flower? And is that the same as hemp versus cannabis, or is it?
Yeah. So, and thank you for that question. So, let's start with Charlotte's Web. And when I say hemp, I mean anything that is, I personally, like, experientially, we consider anything that's like outside of the 28-to-1 ratio, basically it's hemp. You know, you want to get to the 18-to-1 ratio. If you got somebody who's really in pain and got a real aggressive cancer, you want to move towards the 1-to-1 ratio. Right? Hemp has 0.03% naturally occurring THC. Charlotte's Web used to have about 4% naturally occurring THC. Unfortunately, because they were wanting their medicines to meet the market demand, right? This is why we do not mass produce things. They bred the THC out of it and got it down to 0.03%. Eugenia Stanley Brothers, you, right? And so now Charlotte's Web is its own branded company that is selling hemp as an MLM to you online, on Facebook, I'm sure. It is ugly out there.
So basically, you're just using them as the same plant family, just ratios of CBD to THC.
We're wanting to specify the male versus female, and so like the best medicine is in the flower. It doesn't, you just want the flower from the buds, just from the extract. And so what comes into that is human frailty and human error, because, like, for instance, if you have a brain tumor, you should eat, and please write this down if you know anybody who's got cancer, but 60 to 80 grams or milliliters over the course of 90 days, which means 650 to 800 milligrams per day, half oral, half suppository, over the course of 90 days. That, to really get properly made medicine, like you're talking about two pounds of cannabis right there. So if you walk into a dispensary and you buy what is called RSO, and my last name is also Simpson, right? If you buy RSO, okay, it's going to be made from trim, it's going to be made from butane, isopropyl alcohol, or maybe it's made from Everclear, right? Everclear is now also a brand. It has benzene in it. You don't want to make things from the chemicals you can easily get your hands on yourself, unless you have somebody that makes organic grape moonshine, right? Outside of that. And then it's going to take you 100 tries to get it right. And if somebody's really sick, time is of the essence. So what we see is that flower only, strain specific, whole molecule, lab tested, terpene rich, right? Medicine is the way to go to stimulate the endocannabinoid system. We also see that you might find this interesting, the entourage effect has different applications. Could we move forward to the endocannabinoid screen? I do have this talk memorized, I guess. Okay, let's pause right here. So, another thing too, like orally based medicines, it is important because we're taking medicine in, we're trying to do the same thing that other naturopathic disciplines are trying to do. When you go and you get muscle tested, they do kinesiology on you, right? And you walk out of the chiropractor with way too many supplements in your mouth, right? All they're trying to do is turn your liver back on. Okay? You turn your liver back on, you light up the rest of the vital organs, it rebalances the body, right? And the body resets itself, goes back into homeostasis. I am not a doctor. I give these talks to doctors on a regular basis. They don't seem to argue with it, so bear with me. The endocannabinoid system seems to stimulate and regulate all of the other body's regulatory processes, most importantly, our ability to manufacture a perfect and healthy cell. If you lose the ability to make a perfect cell, and again, I'm sorry, go to the endocannabinoid system. If you lose the ability to make a perfect cell via too much inflammation, like a balloon, your cellular blueprint is distended, right? Stretch, like draw a smiley face on a balloon and stretch it out, and it's never going to look the same. If you knock down that inflammation, it gives the body back its ability to produce that cell. And that, in many cases, especially when you don't have a centralized tumor, like in the case of lymphoma, you're going to see a full reversal. Out of 10,000 patients, we figured out, as applied to oncology, a minimum of 630 patients will have that experience from the entourage. That is 63 out of 100 odds. That's ridiculous, right? So, back to the world and the state of things arguing about everything on Facebook, okay? We're all connected in now. We can talk to each other. We can enlighten each other, right? Like when she and I were born in 1971, right? We still had cords on our phones. We still had to play along because when you went to a central place, you needed to be part of a community to get that information. Church, the farmer's market, right? You don't need that anymore. You have it on your phone. So you can disagree and agree with whomever you want to, and you can go find your own little room and your own church. She flew all the way from New York for church. Right? Right? This is what we call correct me if I'm wrong, but this is what we call endogenic medicine. Right? The rebalancing by stimulating that is of the within. The whole premise of A plus B equals disease death, i.e. steroids, antibiotics, ibuprofen. We all know it's not going to lead anybody to the right place. It's going to lead them into further disproportional dishonesty where they're going to need to take more shamanic journeys to come out from underneath it, right? Cannabis oil also is, as John, you were saying, it is in and of itself a shamanic matter. It can be. If you take 800 milligrams of indigo oil, you are going on a trip. And we'll see you in about 3 days. So, and that liquid volume of that medicine is about the size of 10 dimes stacked on each other. And hence that's why we like to use suppositories, because you can use like big dosing for disease and stuff like that. So, I myself, from the car accidents, from the pharmaceuticals, I got strung out on pills, right? Well, if I didn't, I wouldn't have a seizure, right? So, the cannabis oils, like the wonderful byproduct. I wish I could say it was just the seizures that led me to the dispensary, right? But the byproduct of all of that was that I got better. And I found out that, like, as applied to my life-threatening neurological problem, right, it worked. As applied to, like, what was a baby gorilla of drug addiction, it worked. So full extract indigo oil, I forgot about my pill. Right? Doesn't happen. If anybody's in program or like is married to the bottle or anything like that kind of thing doesn't happen. As applied to neurological illness, like knocking down inflammation and resetting that mechanism, right? Like in my case, it happened within 72 hours. You see seizures stop 75% of the time, right? If you go to hemp-based CBD, or if you go to what is now, there's a catchphrase du jour, which is whole plant medicine, which is like something I might see pushing my cart down Whole Foods, right? it's a misnomer. It just means we're using all of the discardable trash and processing it. And as a cannabis oil maker, if you ever have done that before, you're picking cigarette butts and Burger King wrappers out of that stuff. So as a spiritual thing, like nobody deserves that, right? But that's what people do because it's $300 a pound. It's not $3,000 a pound. So, like, we're talking about a very sacred medicine that is extremely powerful that can produce some very wonderful results. The most important part of it is twofold. It is physical, it is spiritual, right? People have felt thrown away. They come in, they get support, they get the encouragement that they need, they get educated, and they get to talk without cost or obligation at any length. And they also know that we're not an all-Catholic. So, I was talking about the whole molecule, strain-specific, organic, lab-tested. Like the final thing that really needs to happen is that, unlike Western medicine, there needs to be quality patient aftercare. And what we had always thought to do as the years go on is that cannabis oil is one thing, but doTERRA essential oils, there are so many healing benefits from so many different oils, and now we're all talking together on the internet, and so King Harvest is like this one little narrow specific trench of things. But what seems to be the case is that all of these things, these essential oils, like the plant medicines, right? They're stimulating the endocannabinoid system through one very specific mechanism, right? And have you guys ever heard the word terpene before? Okay. When you smell weed and it smells kind of flat, it's not very good? Okay. And you smell some weed and it's just super complicated and you're like, oh my God, this is just weird, but I love it. Okay. So that is the medicine's terpene profile. Everything in nature has a terpene profile. Okay? We all have our smells, DNA, all these things. We all have certain combinations of the naturally occurring chemicals from all of the other carbon-based life forms around us, right? So we all have little bits of what's called pinene and tangerine and limonene and limeine, right? And like all of these things assemble a total of like several hundred what are called terpenes. They're like colors in the spectrum that we paint with that are our smells, okay? Like a dog. A dog knows what it needs to eat, and so it eats disgusting things, right? My dogs do anyway, all the time. So they know what is lacking in their immunology, and in more so what's lacking in their own current terpene profile. They will eat something that they're attracted to, right? And it will then balance them. What I'm talking about is that the law of attraction actually has a physicality and is a very real thing. We see commonalities with different types of disorders and diseases. People will be lacking in their terpenes, right? Obviously you don't know what a person's terpenes are, but over a period of time, over thousands of patients, you start seeing that people respond to these different types of strains in different manners, right? So that terpene profile applied to this patient type, you start seeing whole fillet, and you start seeing a commonality and it works. It's super crude. It's not even a science. It's just a guy with a beard who got sick, who's in an unfortunate position of helping all these people, right? And, for whatever reason, there's seems to be quite a bit of legitimacy to that. So, we stimulate the endocannabinoid system, we rebalance the body, we make the medicines under the criteria that one would expect across the street at Whole Foods, right? We understand that it needs to be strain specific. We understand, more importantly, that hemp seed, CBD, and all that kind of stuff that you can buy legally, right, is not going to do the trick. that stuff is basically like an ibuprofen, right? It's good for you, but it's not really going to get you better. It's not going to cause the entourage better. So there is a lot to it, and can I answer any of your guys' questions?
Yes. So I recently met some people from a company who are extracting THC specifically, and then they're adding in terpenes as to match some sort of terpene profile. You think so? Interesting. I'm sure you aren't really a fan of that, right? I can tell from easy.
But and I don't mean to come off closed. Synthetic, man, come on.
I was suspicious too. My question to you is: do you think that the terpenes themselves are kind of active in the healing process, or do you think the terpenes are kind of just signals to, well, maybe this strains that typically exhibit a lot of limonene typically work well for this kind of condition? Or do you think that's just like a flag, or do you think that's like the terpene is an active component?
It seems to be that the terpene is an active component to the establishment of electrolytic conductivity. And when you reestablish that, then the body's like cells talking to each other seems to get better. So again, crude like observations on my end, but it seems to be that it's not like that's actually a difficult question. So you're asking me if the terpenes themselves are specifically treating the disorder, or if they're responsible for the stimulation of the endocannabinoid system.
I mean, I guess we no one really knows yet.
I believe that rebalancing causes proper communication, stimulates that system, and knocks that whatever entourage effect is in check. Like what our experience shows that there's a lot of different kinds of entourage effects.
So just to kind of follow up on that, what is kind of your plan? It sounds like you're treating so many people that you must have and it sounds like you're taking all the results very seriously and kind of keeping track of everything. What are your plans for kind of formalizing your research and helping move towards a scientific approach?
By continuing to do talks like this and meeting people like you that can help me with that. That's exactly what I'm doing. So we already donate medicine to hospitals and institutions. For instance, like Hogue, the Dean of Psychiatry. We have many doctors. We go and do these talks, and we're hoping for a research study to donate medicine to create peer review, once and for all. This is peer review evidence is what we need, and all this is just a bunch of anecdotal stuff. Totally get that. Doesn't mean it doesn't work. I'm sorry, whoever was first.
Yeah, I'm very naive to this. If I want to, how would I deep dive into cannabis science? What would be the first step to learning some? I understand that a lot of it's in the art, but what would be a way of ramping up your knowledge and understanding of this?
There's we have been asked that question on a daily basis for quite a few years, and so the website itself at kingharvest.org is designed to be a what does it do, how does it work, as much of a brochure where step-by-step thing as possible. There are private forums that are really helpful too. There's CBD Community of California. There's several thousand patients in there. There's also a website called Project CBD. You can learn a lot about the endocannabinoid system. There's a gentleman named Martin Lee. You can also go back to the Rick Simpson camp and look up Phoenix Tears. I don't know, do you guys know who Rick Simpson is? Yeah. Okay. He's Grandpa Simpson. He's a guy that got cancer a decade or two ago, made some crude cannabis oil, cured it. It worked, that's great. Now people are making strain-specific medicines that can be used in suppositories. About him, he invented the wheel. We don't want to ride around in his ox cart anymore. So So organizations like ours are working with hospitals and universities and institutions, and we're trying to make race cars now. You know, like we love the wheel, but can't go anywhere without the wheel. But, you know, it's sort of a crude, outdated model. You had a question?
Yeah, with regard to the 18:1 CBD, 18:1 THC, and if I'm understanding you correctly, that ratio, and then smaller is more beneficial. So let's say 10:1 or even whatever it is. And then, I mean, I don't know if it's related. The other question I have is regarding, you mentioned that it suppresses the immune system. And I heard that one other place that depending on your cancer, what the issue was, some cannabis would really help knock it out, and some could, you know, make it worse.
Make it worse.
So if you could just speak a little bit to that, would be great.
So as applied to hormonal-based cancers, right? THC in toxic form, like especially if it's crudely extracted, meaning there's mineral, solvents in there, or there's whatever the grower's been growing on there too. You know, there are steroids, different things like that. So what it seems to be is that too much THC in the wrong type of breast cancer, and it's only been, in my experience, it's only breast cancer. It seems to have proliferated it in some cases. When researching that further, like, it didn't really seem to be founded, right? But we're an organization that we're responsible for so many people. Like, we need to take that very seriously, obviously. So with that type of diagnosis or families of diagnoses, everybody starts on the opposite end of the spectrum with the ACDC plant at 18:1. It only adds, if it's breast cancer, we're really only getting back to the 1-to-1 ratio on our THC levels as far as what I'll approve, because that should knock it out. So if you go, we see if you go like above 1-to-1 where you have 3-to-1 and so on and so forth, that's where those troubles occur, because the idea was that the stronger the better, right? And so your 90% oil is better than 60 and all that kind of stuff. It's really not about like how much, everyone thinks it's how much THC or CBD's in it. It's really not. It's about how robust all the 63 plus chemicals are represented in that single pristine molecule. And so the manufacturing of that is very, very problematic.
You mentioned something about flour-based oil or the offcuts-based oil. I know that most of oils are produced from the cutouts because they're just so much cheaper. Can you just tell a little bit more about the quality of the oil which is produced here today?
Okay. So if you're talking about vape cartridges?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So basically the good rule of thumb with a vape cartridge is if the clearer the oil, the more processing that's happening. So, as consumers, we want to go, and taste something yummy that looks pure and clean and all this stuff. We have this sort of predisposed expectation to how we are advertised to. Like, we want our vape cartridge to be as perfect as our Apple laptop, right? And we want all the packaging to look just like that, or whatever the next thing is. So what it seems to be the case, and I've never seen any variation, is that the lighter the color, the purer the medicine, and it gets to where it's so pure that it isn't medicinal anymore. And then also you see if something has flavors in it or reintroduced terpenes and that kind of stuff. Like that, those things may be very beneficial to us, like reintroduced terpenes in the coming future. But what we do is we make the medicine that looks dark green, right? It's got all the chlorophyll in it, all the plant compounds. It's not just about THC and CBD. It's not, like nobody knows what this really is being caused by. No one knows where this wonderful entourage effect is being come from. It might be the balance of the chlorophyll in the CBD, right? We all were alive when Cheech and Chong were. So we all have this thing, like even with me who's seeing cancer patients on a day-to-day basis, I'm still thinking recreationally, stronger, better. right? I need to find and dig down on that, drill down, and get honest with myself about that. Because I'm still operating on it. And what we're doing is we're seeing a modern world, a highly toxic world, right? Where it's becoming faster, more angry. People are mistreating each other, and they don't have to gather in those centralized community spaces anymore and behave nicely to get their information. So everyone's like yoked and on the freeway and entitled and competing with each other, and no one's talking, and everybody's sick, right? Everybody's sick. Like 1 in 3 people are being diagnosed with cancer now. Like 1 in 3 dogs have lymphoma, right? So my experience, who cares what anybody does? Who cares what I do? Who cares what you do? Whatever you do, drill down on that information and make sure you do it right. Because there are so many people now, there is no community anymore. So if you, sir, are the person that's going home and helping people with healing plant medicines, like, congratulations for being here, because to all of you, to know as much as you can, right? To us too, like, we didn't know where we were coming in. It was just an opportunity to jump into the mix and try to help and educate, So, little rooms like this are going to be the hub of everything, and it's going to save the world. It is.
From my experience, fuller, richer spectrum extract works in like a symphony on the endocannabinoid system, as well as other systems that we likely don't even know that we have via other plant modalities and stuff. So my intuition, experience, yeah.
So, thank you for that point. So he was asking me about terpenes, if there's specific terpenes are specific to being, if terpenes are curative. What I believe is you're going to find another system out of that that we didn't even imagine.
Yeah, and I also am feeling that it's both. It's flag, and it has some kind of actual overall synergistic effect with cannabinoids as well as other things.
If I could close with one single point, it would be that all of you as healers do the opposite of Western medicine. Take care of your people. Take all the time they need, right? And when they're in that sacred space with you, don't sell them. Just help. Hey, how's this for contradictory? We do have brochures and business cards. But I hope I did a good job. I promised you that I would not turn it into an infomercial, and hopefully I did that. Are there any other questions?
So regarding, you're saying that there's ways that you can give in large quantities without people getting like, 3-day trips. How do you do that?
So, if we ingest the medicine via suppository, i.e. rectally, and very specifically to the second knuckle of the forefinger, okay? No further than that, right? Put the medicine in a gel cap, use it as a suppository, insert it to the second knuckle. It'll stimulate the liver without going into, I think that's the vena cava artery. What is that artery in there? Any doctors in there? So, taking it via suppository, it's in the send or the return, so you don't get high, but it still stimulates the liver and turns it on. Again, we're just trying to turn your liver on like a light switch.
The capsule dissolves? Yes.
Yeah, so just a vegan gel cap from Whole Foods is a fancy name for a suppository. Or is it? Yeah. We make single-use suppository syringes and all kinds of gadgets and doohickeys and stuff. But a basic, simple, easy-to-use suppository on your own is a vegetarian gel cap. They come like in a bag of 500 for $3 or whatever. Like you'll use 2 and you'll never know what the hell you're going to do with the rest of them. We can't even give them away.
So it's going to the liver that needs to get high?
No, it's crossing the blood-brain barrier that gets you high. It's going through the liver that's to be in, it's a secret room, so I can say curative. I'm not allowed to say through it.
So it does go through the portal vein when you do it rectally like that, or it does?
Does not.
Does not, okay.
Yeah.
And so then it absorbs into the bloodstream, but not the blood-brain barrier?
Yes. Something about it being on the return instead of the send. So it goes into the bloodstream and then hits the liver. THC is processed out, so it never hits the blood-brain barrier.
What about, okay, do you know what DMSO is?
I do, and we see people use it in conjunction with cannabis therapies. Cannabis oil doesn't contraindicate with anything.
No, but I need to like put it to transdermally using DMSO because DMSO like makes it absorb.
I hear good and bad things about DMSO. Not enough about DMSO to use it as a, like a workbench in our group. So what we do is we use emu oil, which is about 400% more transdermally effective than regular MCT organic coconut oil.
For topical use.
For topical use. Did I answer your question? I'm not sure I answered
Not
your
so much
question.
about the DMSO, but DMSO, I don't know.
I don't know a lot about
anything
DMSO.
Absorb. So it basically like anything that you want to absorb into anything, you put DMSO with it, and it will go straight in. So I was thinking that it would make it would make it almost like you're putting it, like injecting it or something.
Yeah. I don't know what effect DMSO has on the integrity of that molecule. So, usually that molecule is fine as long as it's up, not below negative 186 and not above 186. Seems to work well.
Now you mentioned that the Charlotte's Web they actually bred the ratio out of like what it was naturally.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you tell the difference between there's so many strains, thousands of strains out there? How do you tell the ones that are like artificially bred or out of sync and real?
We want to move to what are, think about cannabis like tomatoes, right? We want to move to our heirloom strains. Everything that originated in the Afghanistan region, the African regions, and even in Central America, good old-fashioned Mexican cess bud was full of CBD, like the brickweed that we used to get as kids, like growing up in San Diego and Orange County. That stuff was, if we could get our hands back on that now, like we could make some super quality medicine. We all used to ride our bikes down the Flower Street in San Diego.
But there's third-party lab testing on everything. So we test flour when it comes in, make sure that it's clean, and so we know what the terpene profile is.
And that really is the answer to your question. It's about the terpene profile. So there is Incredible Hulk, there is Sour Diesel, and there is Green Crack. Right? All three of those medicines under our farms have almost identical terpene profiles. Like everybody wants to take ownership and patent a wonderful name, like Green Crack. So some guy chose that name and he did that. That doesn't mean that terpene profile or the potency or the chemical balance of that is any different than Sour Diesel or Incredible Hulk, right? So that's where we leave the egos out of it and we look at the labs. And we can really determine what is in the medicine and what is this actually all about. So Granddaddy Purple, right? Something called Hindu Kush, certain specific type of platinum OG, different indicas that have that, what's like the heirloom strain of that family is Granddaddy Purple. Another wonderfully curative strain is called Girl Scout Cookies. You probably all heard of that. Indicas do well for anxieties and cancers. Sativas do well for depressive people and neurological problems. CBD dominant medicines are what you use universally for all things autoimmune. And you start with an 18:1 ratio and you lift up the THC levels from there depending on pain and symptoms. So, and I could continue to talk for hours, but I want to give up the floor. If you guys want to talk to us some more, have any questions, please visit us at kingharvest.org. Please come talk to me, get a card. We'll give you all the time you want. If you're a healer and you want to get into cannabis, we have a whole, group of caregivers headed up by Bridget and more specifically Katie. So even if you just want to ask questions about getting into it, we're totally here to help. With that, if there's no other questions, again, my name is Lee. We're from King Harvest. If there's anything that we can do, so we make tinctures. You want to scroll through that real quick? This is an example of full extract medicines. It's good. It's dark, right? It's not clear. CO2 extracted. It's not, yeah. So this is an example of the blue emu. All the medicines come in indicas, what's called synergy, which is CBD or THC, and then CBD dominant. There'll also be a sativa one too. Salves for burns, etc. Vape. No propylene glycol, no flavorings, no additives, whole molecule, flower only vape. Anyway, KingHarvest.org.